Hi everyone, it's Todd Nauck, and I'm back with the third and final part of this Harley Quinn commission, the Copic color video. In this video, I'll be sharing with you some of my tricks on using Copic sketch markers, as well as answering your Copic marker related questions. So the up first here is I'm putting down the a base coat of red on the red parts of her costume using the R27, my favorite shade of red. I feel it's a pretty traditional red. And what I'm doing is utilizing the white of the paper as a highlight on the red part of her costume. From the ink, when I did the line work ink stage, I picked a kind of a highlight there on the black parts of her costume. You can see that there's white left there, which I'll come in with some gray later on, as a light source coming from above and a bit to the left for the most part. So in that same vein, I'm doing the similar lighting on the red parts of her costume, as well as other aspects of her costume, her face, her hammer, things like that. So I'll be keeping that in mind throughout this piece. So I come in with a base coat here to really establish the shapes, and I like utilizing the light source and the white of the paper to kind of help create some volume on the character. I feel it kind of gives her some depth. As I move into the shading aspect here of this piece, I have a question that goes along those lines, posted by Bromine. And Bromine asks, do you have any tips on picking the shading colors? I always seem to find a good base color, but then struggle to find the shading color and end up going over my original choice with another pen, which can make it look kind of muddy. I'm assuming Bromine means he's using a different brand of pen for his shading, possibly. There are two different approaches I find to picking shading colors. First off is utilizing the codes on each marker. Each Copic marker has a series of 2 numbers on there, and that kind of helps you know how they fit into the color spectrum. So the first number stands for the saturation, and that is how vibrant the color is. So a 0 will be the most vibrant, where a 9, as you go up the scale, will move you towards more of a duller or grayer sort of tone. So, and then the second number tells you how light it is in that group. So a 0 would be a lighter shade, and 9 to a darker. So like with the R's here, the R2 would be a one shade, and then I could continue down that same road with R2 6, R2 7, R2 8, and as to get to a darker and darker shade. What I preferred to do here with Harley was to use a completely different shade of red. So I used an R5. So I just found that I liked the pairing of these two colors. So I could have stuck with the R2 shade of red and gone darker by going up the scale, or as I've done here is pick a completely different shade of red. So I went to the R5 family. So hopefully that kind of helps you understand how those numbers work in shading. Hopefully I explained that there pretty well. And so now I'm coming in with a cool gray to put shadow on the white parts of her costume. I often like to use cool gray, and but that's not a hard fast rule. It all just depends on the type of shade of white I want to use. But when it's a traditional white, I like to use a cool gray there. So let's see if we have another question. And as you can see, I've continued with the lighter shade base coat, and then like with the grays, and then a darker gray for different parts of her costume to separate the highlight from the base color. And with the white of her costume, that's pretty much the base color, and then coming in. So the light gray I used was more of a shadow, and then a darker gray to really highlight the separation of those two colors there. So that's one nice, that whenever I use whenever there's a character that has a lot of white, I guess I should say, I like to use a cool gray for the shadow. Generally, it's not a hard fast rule. It all just depends on the type of white it is. You know, there's always those different types of whites. And now coming in with another shade of, I'm using a neutral gray, which I often use as a gray to shade out from black portions of a costume. So Now I'm coming in here and cutting in with those as well. Still leaving some white space on the black part of her costume uh, to continue that highlight, so I don't fill in that entire white area that I left in the black parts of her costume. I want to keep that white highlight in there as best I can. Let's see, I got another question here by Brandon Lemaster. Brandon posts, I've been buying a lot of Copic sketch markers and I love them, but the only problem I have with them is when I need to get precise and accurate, it's really hard to do with the sketch. Copic originals have a nib that lets you get precise, but then you don't have the brush end. I was thinking of getting cool gray and warm gray originals and the rest in sketch. In your opinion, what's your opinion on that, and what's your fave? I haven't really used, I don't really own any of the Copic originals. Once I discovered Copic sketch markers, I fell in love with them, and I don't really have a problem with accuracy with the brush tip because that tip is so fine. I think it might just possibly be the more you practice, the better you'll get at doing the fine tip sort of stuff. As you see, I just got in there in that little tiny space in Harley's lip to put in a little detail. I use that with a sketch marker. I just really like those, and the sketch marker tips are replaceable, so sometimes they get a little frayed, they get a little worn out. You could buy a pack of 3 of them for a reasonable price and then just pull the old one out, put the new one in, and you're good to go. So I really think practice is a part of it, and but go with what works best for you. So if you really like the Copic originals with the Copic sketch, you know continue with that. But me personally, I don't have a problem with accuracy with the sketch markers, but it's probably just because that's the only thing I really know, and I really do like them. So best of luck with you and your art, Brandon. Now, as I'm going through here with the hammer, the sketch brush tip really comes in handy for creating textures, like this wooden texture. Still using the white of the board as a highlight, just coming in with these bloopy streaks, just letting the brush tip kind of bobble across the paper there to create kind of a wooden texture, like the tree bark. And I'm layering in different shades of brown and occasionally a warm gray for shadowing. So that's one nice thing about the sketch markers that I really enjoy, especially that brush tip. Artisan 1979 posts, I've been working on a Superman commission, and for some reason my sky blue Copic keeps coming out blotchy. Any idea why this is happening and how I can correct it? My first thought is that you might need to refill your marker. It might be running dry, so when your marker starts to get streaky, you need to give it a refill. Refill bottles are a great way to help extend the life of your marker. You can get about 15 refills per bottle, so refill bottles are a really cost-effective way of maintaining the life of your marker. So that, and then when you're filling in your backgrounds, fill them in chunks and kind of do layerings and second coats to help kind of blend in those darker parts where the 2 layers meet. Hopefully that helps. And then Shara Melton posts, how do you keep from messing up or going outside the lines while you're coloring and or drawing? Well, Shara, whether you're starting out as an artist or you've been a pro for a number of years, mistakes are going to happen. It's just, part of life. The trick is finding a way to make the mistake work in the piece or hide the mistake, whether it's with color or changing the line art or the background. As you practice and get better at your art, when you do make mistakes, hopefully they won't be as big and problematic as to where you have to start over. I rarely have to start over when I make a little mistake. So, but sometimes big mistakes happen, and you just figure out where to go from there. So hopefully that answers your question. I really appreciate you posting it. And if you're looking for more tutorials, visit copicmarker.com/tutorials. The link is posted below. Tons of free tutorials posted by all sorts of different Copic artists. You can learn all sorts of different techniques, apply them to your Copic drawings, and see what you can discover art-wise. It's always fun to learn from other people. So be sure to visit the link below and check it out. It's a very popular part of the Copic website. So thanks for tuning in, and I have another 3-parter coming up real soon. See you later.